lucky to have our fearless leader here with me, Brad Porterfield, who has been leading this charge for quite a while, 15 years. And LCA's been around Central Oregon now 20 years, one of the longer surviving nonprofits here in the region. Very proud to say. And not too long ago, Bend Chamber of Commerce recognized us as one of the best small nonprofits in Bend in particular. But yeah, David, thank you for the introduction. I've got my coffee right here. But yeah, that's why I have a funny accent. I grew up in LA. and I hear other people and I said, California, yeah. But we keep that on the down low, right? But every so often you'll hear a little drawl because I spent 22 years in Houston. So I'll come out with a y'all or, and kind of, so it all depends as to who the audience is, right? But what I really love and what Brad reminds me of is how my Espanol has improved since coming here, because if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And this is when my mom and dad shipped me to Mexico for a year to make sure that I had it down. And it's still, but here I've had a wonderful opportunity to serve our Latino community, our Spanish speakers here, which have grown. And I just wrote this down to remind me, in 1990, there were 1,000 of us in Central Oregon, Latinos. And today there's 20. And in 2030, there's gonna be 30. Not to put the fear of who in you, but it's not just here, it's everywhere. This part of the country, the world is in flux in terms of shifting demographics. In Redmond, for instance, in K through 12, 20% of all the students there are Latinx, identify themselves as Latinx. It's one of the reasons why I ran for school board last year. No representation for our families. We'll get there. I don't know about me, but we'll get there. No, but I'm very, very proud. My background is Catholic schoolboy who got a full ride to go to a Jesuit university, did a stint in law school for a year, and then graduate school of social work at the University of Houston, and just a little bit of everything. But when I saw Brad's job posting to have this opportunity to come here, I thought to myself, this is like me. I can do this. And now I've got this new title, no longer empowerment program manager, but after 40 years of dropping out of law school, I get to practice now a little immigration law. Simple stuff. But we're accredited and recognized. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So thank you for the promotion. I wanted to just share with you our mission, our mission, and this is what I love about LCA. Everything that we do is bilingual. So, and I told someone just a little bit ago, if Canada could do it with the French and the English, how come we can't? And basically, we are all about empowering our families, Latino families, to thrive by creating opportunities for advancement and building bridges that unite and strengthen our communities. That's who we are. That's what we're dedicated towards. And we have primarily 4 programs that we've delineated there into specific areas of what we do. And you can see we do a little bit of everything because we have to, because our folks unfortunately need this assistance, this support as they transition, right? Like my parents did. But there was no LCA back then in the 50s and 60s. But I don't need to go over each and every one, but I want to give you an idea as to the breadth of what we're all about. And yeah, so the monies that we raise in terms of our budget and how we spend them, that's the breakdown. Correct? But we can't do it by ourselves. And this is why I brought some of our propaganda in the back for y'all to take with you, to kind of remind you that it takes a village, honestly, for all of us to kind of come together and look out for the ones that need our assistance the most, which sounds very biblical if you think about it, right? But a lot of us have strayed away from that notion. And yeah, I see some familiar faces in this picture as you look at it. But again, when I started in this organization, I think there were 6 of us. There's like 14 now, 13, 14. But that's, but beyond that, we have an army of volunteers that many of you all are already and have been with us, so God bless you. But we need more, particularly if you're bilingual, particularly in certain areas like English and citizenship prep, computer literacy, all kinds of great things. We had to shift a couple years ago, honestly, with what came down with the virus and our efforts. And I'm just so proud of how all of us, and me a little bit, but everyone else in particular, towards providing that extra needed financial support for folks who didn't fall into that safety net of stimulus money. And so thank God for the state of Oregon, who put together this alivio laboral, the Oregon Workforce, Oregon Relief Fund. Yeah, I always know it as alivio laboral, just Oregon Worker Relief Fund. And this is what we generated since April of 2020, in terms of how many people and how much money has been disseminated, how much support we've been able to provide. Folks that have been afflicted with COVID, that were quarantined, that lost time from work, needed assistance with rent, utilities, and many of y'all also, and this was really truly heartwarming for myself, especially having been an educator, working in schools, that a lot of our local teachers rolled, I don't say a lot, but some rolled over their stimulus checks to LCA. They said, we're good, but we know that there's families out there that are going without. True? Yeah. And you can see where we spend most of our time. A lot of folks think that we all live in Madras. I said, you'll see more of us there because we're a bigger proportion of 6,000 people. We're 40% or 33 to the 3rd%, I think, approximately. But here in Bend of 100,000, we're 10%. That's significant. So this is why we got a big old office here. And a little bitty one in Redmond, but that's changing. But Madras, we're in Prineville, and I tell our folks when people ask me, I said, Latinos, we're everywhere. Which is amazing to me coming from the Southwest, thinking I was going to be the only Chicano up here in the Pacific Northwest. Another interesting dynamic, because people sometimes will ask us, like, where are the Latinos coming in from? And I just gave you a number of how that's changing. Are they coming in from El Salvador or Guatemala? Are they still coming in from Southern Mexico? And I said, actually, they're coming in from East LA. They're coming in from Oakland, Southwest Houston, South Chicago. They're escaping. All parents want the best type of experience for their children, including mine. This is what they got the heck out of Dodge when they could, right? And so people are discovering, and the word gets out, right? How beautiful and tranquil and green and no graffiti and yet, right? But this is what our parents want that too. This is a pretty interesting table chart, just kind of show the discrepancies. And you can help me out here in terms of And I think it also bodes well to us in terms of we tried to do our part to minimize those discrepancies amongst vaccination rates between Latinos and non-Latinos. So, just on the bottom, Brad, are those the ages, 5+?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone above 5 years old, everyone above 15?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't quite sure how to read that. Huh. And feel free to interrupt me and ask questions, and we'll get through this. I know we got limited time. Getting our folks tested, getting them vaccinated, and we worked collaboratively with Mosaic and who else?
Oregon Health Authority.
Oregon Health Authority. I mean, it was team effort.
Others.
Completely. And y'all, we had many volunteers also helping us to this day, because we're still having those clinics.
Starting back in May. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A week, 2 weeks.
And so far, as of June last year, this is what we've accomplished in a nutshell. Beyond the monies and the support and the vaccination rates and the food boxes, the masks, the hand sanitizers. I mean, huge mobilization effort. And the other thing that was really kind of cool, at first it was kind of daunting. All our classes had to transition from live in vivo to virtual. So the learning curve for our families was, but as I share this with the families when I get a chance. I said, when I was a little kid, moms didn't drive. Dads, grandpas, brother, big brother, but mom, not really. And then one day, people in the community saw Doña Carmela, my mom, driving, 50 years old. And when they saw her, they said, wow, Doña Carmela could, we're gonna learn. And before you know it, boom, boom, boom. Driving their kids to school, to go shopping. I mean, just like now. But it took, like with technology. But we did the best that we could, and our parents were fantastic. And now they're coming around to being more and more comfortable with technology. And some of them even want to stay with Zoom and don't want to go back to have to drive in the elements. And the Zoom thing was cool because it brought our folks together from all the different sectors of the Central Oregon, which I thought was, kind of a cool side note. So I guess my point is, in spite of the classes going sideways, the learning continued.
Yeah.
Thank God for our volunteers, teachers, tutors, across the board. In a nutshell, these are the main focus areas that we're gonna commit ourselves now and into the not so distant future. The Youth Rising is mostly centered here in Ben Lapine, but it has to do with helping our kids hold on to their culture by way of their language. Because we have a lot of our kids who assimilate or acculturate a little bit too quickly. And they lose sight as to who they are. And sometimes that sense of not having a true, strong identity hurts their confidence, their self-esteem. They don't really want to push themselves to become truly self-actualized, as Maslow would say. Sometimes become ashamed of their families, of their parents. They don't want to learn Spanish. They want to change their name. I mean, I could go on. This is not Latinos. This is, again, an affliction, unfortunately, for a lot of our youth of color in particular. And I want to bring that up because, to me, that's having worked in schools and with kids, that's key. Advocacy and leadership is also building new momentum now that we have kind of created a team with Leslie Kano, who we just brought on board, and Hilda Leon. And they're going to be leading the charge here, both locally and statewide, in certain initiatives. And a lot of them have to do with immigration reform, okay? We can talk about that in a minute as well. And this is my ballywhack. This is what I'm really, really proud of in terms of LCA obtaining their accreditation and recognition by the Department of Justice to do immigration legal work. Nothing, again, too complex or convoluted, even though immigration law tends to be that. And those, I work very closely with private immigration attorneys who provide me guidance, but we're also affiliated with the Catholic Legal Immigration Network out of Washington, D.C., who are awesome in terms of providing me support, guidance, training. We also have been collaborating very closely with immigration counseling services out of Portland for the past few years, I want to say. We're before,
Thanks, bye.
wow, time flies. Before COVID, they would actually come to Redmond and see our folks in person. Obviously with COVID, everything went virtual, but they were still committed to meeting with our folks for free, the first consultation. And that relationship is growing. We also collaborate very closely with Innovation Law Lab, also out of Portland, who has promised us an immigration fellow, someone right out of law school, to work alongside of us at LCA, myself primarily. And again, the citizenship prep program is really big in what we do is also. Yes, sir.
Quick question, I hope quick, about immigration right now has a focus because of the situation in Ukraine particularly, and the mobilization of resources to get those folks into the U.S. Could you give us a little idea as to the problems with the immigration services and their square filling that must, you know, you gotta have the right paperwork. Reports are that here's the place in the U.S., you gotta get the paperwork right. Otherwise they can't come live with you. Any idea what's going on there?
I can't speak so much about the refugee issue, but I do recall, and maybe you could help me out, Brad, but I do recall when Afghanistan, when all that came down and people were worried about those folks, and someone had brought up to Phil Chang, and I like Phil quite a lot, about, hey, we got space here, you know, and I'm thinking about also down with Ukraine, and we got room here. But what he came out with, and I wanted to ask him about it, he goes, well, you know, we got a huge homeless issue already in Central Oregon. And I would say, so? What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Build a wall? So, I'm sorry. I'm digressing. But anyway, I wanted to, so I'm sorry, I really can't.
That's okay.
But they're related, but they're not. But I could speak to the bureaucracy of USCIS.
Yeah.
And especially during the Trump administration, where a lot of the funding went away, and so there was less folks to process applications. So everything, I mean, it was already slow before, it got a lot slower. We have families that have been waiting to be reconnected with family members, like their parents or their brothers and sisters, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. That is just, and that's not what USCIS is supposedly about. But look what happened at the border during Trump era, right, with the separation of our families. Yes, ma'am.
How long is it until you can become a legal citizen? How many years? How long?
The first step is to become a legal permanent resident. And that's the leap from no status to a status. And until we have that comprehensive immigration reform, a lot of our folks just won't be able to make that transition. That's why we're really pushing to create some sort of pathway towards citizenship that will include, you know, these folks with no status to somehow become legal permanent residents first. And then once you become an LPR, as we say, 5 years. Clean record, good moral character. I mean, they want to know everything. But the biggest hurdle is the legal permanent residency. And to transition to citizenship from there isn't as big of a leap. But right now we got millions of people that just aren't on that path to citizenship, including our dreamers. So we got a lot of work to do. Yes, ma'am.
I have a friend from Romania that has had permanent status and a green card for 22 years. And she wants to marry, and they won't allow her to marry because they say that she just wants citizenship. She's been all of this time trying to get citizenship. So
It's really bad.
it's,
I mean, there's reasons as to why they want to make sure that the marriages are legitimate, because some of them are just out of convenience and people, money's
she
exchanged.
applied for citizenship 20 years ago.
They are just a different type of governmental agency, I'll put it that way. They're very particular as to who they let in the door. I get it, but we need to open up, create more doors, or maybe some windows. Something's got to give.
Well, she probably needs legal help, or somebody help from somebody like you.
Yes, potentially.
She's eligible already.
Yeah, if she's ready and that's her desire, not to get married, but to become a citizen, right? Feel free to have her contact our office, contact me.
Yeah, she has an attorney that
Okay.
has sent her to the Romanian consulate to work with the powers that be that are not giving us citizenship or the right to marry.
Okay, sounds like she's,
But I will definitely refer her.
okay. And if we're able to help out, we will, because we just don't work with Latinos. I just want to make that clear too. Anyone that comes through our doors. Okay. And the other thing that I need to mention about that, being the holistic social worker that I like to think that I used to be, is that's how we approach our families, our folks. They may come in with one dilemma in mind, and we'll have that conversation. And not just myself really, but mostly our front office staff people. But we also, we want to know about the children, the spouse, what's going on, at work, how the kids doing at school, the health issue, y'all have insurance, y'all work, and whatever it is, which way we could help and provide that support, we're gonna do it. And if we can't do it, we're gonna find a solution to take care of their problem. Churches used to do more of that. My church used to do more of that, the Catholic Church, on the forefront of immigration. And to me, it's sad that we've kind of gone sideways on that. Because to me, it's all in the New Testament. Right? Welcoming the stranger, right?
Give us some of your insight on that, because the Catholic Legal Immigration Network going sideways?
This organization is strong.
Okay.
But I would say the leadership, like the archdiocese, the cardinals, the bishops, the parishes. We got some parishes here locally that don't even want to meet with LCA or allow us to go and talk to their parishioners. And I just don't get it. It's just,
You'll see Trump stickers in the parking lot.
and that's another thing that's changing, that people want to believe that we all are progressive or democratic. And, my parents were part of the Viva Kennedy campaigns from way back. But more and more of them, just like more and more of them, we're not all monolithic. We weren't. It's at one point 99% Catholic. Not anymore. Same with our politics. And what I've come to notice is Rush Limbaugh kind of set the tone for AM radio, but not just for English speakers, but now for Spanish speakers. So our families are hearing some of this mess, this misinformation. And we get some of that back indirectly or directly, but it's something just to be aware of, because it poisons the mind, honestly. And it just breeds hatred and fear, even within our own community, about those others, whoever they happen to be. Because honestly, Catholics tend to be very conservative, especially about issues like abortion and so forth. I alluded to this earlier, but we're gearing up. We're in the process of building momentum and information to let people know how important it is to get our folks out of the shadows and for them to actively be able to participate in our community on every level. So this is where we come in, not just as a service delivery organization, but now advocacy, mobilization, organization. Going back to the days of Cesar Chavez. That's what's needed. That's what's needed. Some things, that work, let's keep doing it. So NPNA, I'm not familiar with them, but they're on the national front,
Yeah.
obviously. Can't read it.
Jacob Trevor Monroe stands for as well.
Too big.
National something for New Americans. National Partnership for New Americans.
National Partnership for New Americans.
I like that.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
really close to that. It's not that.
Nuevos Americanos, I like that. Yes, that's,
You said that 10% of the population in Bend is Latinx. Wow. And I constantly hear people say, I never see. And I usually say, well, do you ever walk in Drake Park? I mean, how can people not see that there are
some,
among us?
and forgive me, but sometimes they don't want to see. One. And this is why sometimes our folks feel that they're, they can't be seen, and that's an awful feeling, right? The other thing is that our folks tend to get up really early and go to work really, really early, and work really, really late. and that was, it's a good thing, but again, so they're coming in early and leaving late, and so they're not going to be typically at Drake Park walking their dog in the middle of the day. And sometimes are precluded from going to the school meetings, and it's just a lot of issues. The issue for me though was during, in the moments of when COVID really hit hard, but our families, who many of them were essential frontline workers, couldn't work from home. They still had to show up, or else, right?
Yeah.
So the end result of that is that they were leaving their kiddos behind, unsupervised sometimes. The older kids sometimes transitioned into the workforce, so they left high school. But the middle ones, hey, video games, hey, mom and dad are, whatever. And our kids were already behind. That's my point. So there's a lot of what we refer to as lost learning. And that's what we're pushing the school districts to really move forward and accelerate the learning now. Double time math, double time reading, whatever it takes to get our kids, when I say our kids of color, to where they need to be, which is not necessarily the community college. I want them to go straight to Notre Dame, or USC, or UCLA, or Loyola Marymount. Yeah, where I went. This community college stuff, it's a trap door. I worked in them for many, many years. And one, it's the, and I could go on and on about this, but basically a lot of our kids that go there don't finish without a piece of paper of any sort, without the ability to transfer. They end up having to take a lot of remedial classes because K through 12 didn't do a good job. And that eats up all their financial aid on the front end. So they can't transfer to Oregon State or U of O on the back end. So it's our institutions on all levels, in law enforcement, city government, our schools, this is where we come in as advocates to kind of let them know that there's some oversight, and beyond ourselves, other people in the community who care, that these are all our kids. They're our future, they're going to be our next door neighbors one day. I think we're almost done. And this is basically in a nutshell are what we're all about in terms of respect and dignity. And I like to think that President Biden has kind of brought that back in institutions like, or organizations like USCIS. At least that's the rhetoric that we hear. Basic dignity, human rights. And I'm so happy to see that we have a Human Rights Commission now in Bend, which is, well, I came from Eugene and they'd had one for 30, 40 years. I'm going, wow. Out here in Central Oregon, things take a little bit, longer for the wheels to turn. Full participation, equity, change of policies, and again, in how we enforce the rules in a non-discriminatory fashion. I mean, just values and virtues that are near and dear to our hearts that we want to share with the rest of you, because we believe many of you also feel in the same vein.
Oscar,
Sir.
that last line, uphold American values and traditions of neighborliness. Now, American values seems to be a debatable point now.
So I don't want to look like he's saying.
Let me think about that.
It's the values we profess, not necessarily practice.
And
That's a good place to start, but in practice.
and American, and I always tell kids this, it includes us.
Yeah,
We're Latin American.
yeah.
It's the whole hemisphere is America, right? And in Mexico, they make that distinction of North Americanos, because they see themselves as American too.
Sure.
So you could use that, semantics, right? But I get you. So I appreciate that observation. Because we don't want to necessarily impose our values because, like I tell my friends, I said, I'm Mexican, but not that Mexican, right? Because I have a certain different sense of values than, let's say, my parents, who I have to say were very proud to become Americans once they became citizens. And we're so proud to put that flag, that American, on 4th of July and Flag Day. And I was coming home from Loyola on the weekends and I would see that. And I was going through my cultural, within myself, from being a Mexican American, right? Hyphenated American, to realizing that I'm really a Chicano, politically, culturally, in so many different ways. And so, we would have these conversations about church and government and values and what does it mean to be an American, and what this stuff about Chicanismo, what is the Jesuit priest doing to you? Turning you into a Marxist-Leninist. They're right. Because now, instead of wanting to be a cop, LAPD, or, I wanted to be like Eric Estrada, Chips, right? I wanted to do something. Now I wanted to go to law school and go after those bad cops that used to brutalize us growing up. Because I always thought, well, the only way we're going to change it is to become one, infiltrate them, and truly serve and protect our community instead of brutalizing them. Like, they would beat us up whenever they saw more than 2 or 3 of us. And it was just about getting dark for no reason. But that's how they controlled the neighborhood. The black and whites, as we used to call them, in LA. Everybody knows about the black and white. That's all of us. And what a team. So proud of each and every one of them. And I'd like to give props to our newest addition, Leslie Kano, which some of you may remember her from KTVZ, Channel 21, news reporter. And, but she's made that transition to wanting to do something in her life that was even that much more impactful. And that resonated with us. And we said, Leslie, where do we sign you up? But we're happy to have her, and she's teaming up with Hilda, this advocacy and leadership team. We're going to be hopefully identifying community members and encouraging them to run for office, or at least go to the PTA meetings or the city hall, engage. Find their voice. Share their voice. Come out of the shadows. Yeah. And how this team coalesced during COVID in particular, everyone's shifting their energies and attention to providing this safety net on so many different levels. That's, wow.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of different jobs in my life, but this takes the cake. This is something. Our board of directors. Some of y'all may recognize some of these people. Sir.
No, you go ahead.
Oh. Kinsey Martin, who's administrator with Benwood Pine Schools. Marcos, owner of Ola. Some of these
Oh, yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Liliana Cabrera, she's out and about in the community. Xavier Borja, who just got elected to an Parks and Rec board. So we got some, but that's in transition too, as we speak. Because we're always looking for new board folks, people like yourselves to, help us and provide us with your wisdom and insight. All right. And that says it all. Together. Right? Not working in silos, right? But true community. Yes, sir.
You mentioned needing volunteers. I want to put a plug in for Mary Murphy. She is extraordinary as a volunteer coordinator, and if any of you are interested in becoming a volunteer for LCA, you can contact Mary, you can contact me, and I'll put you in touch. But we would like to have our church more involved with LCA. So put a plug in for Mary, give her a call. She's an extraordinary volunteer coordinator.
Yeah, we love Mary so much we hired her twice. And she wants to become an immigration attorney as well. That's how much she has going for her in terms of, she's a mover and a shaker. She worked in a refugee camp, I think, in Baja California somewhere for a graduate degree. But yeah, and her Spanish is better than mine. So she's amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I just wondered, next week the ballots are coming out in the mail, and are you doing any push to get people to vote?
When we can, as often as we can, yes, especially with the children of our parents, because most of our parents, again, have no status, and therefore cannot participate civically. But their children who are born here and are of age, and there's more Latinos. That's the other demographic development. I think the median age for Latinos is 24, and for non-Latinos is 48. And so, and for children, we're having 3.4 children in England, 1.7. So everything is and the baby boomers are retiring, and the need for immigrants, honestly, to provide, that labor that's going to be needed because of the gaps, because of the retirees. So everything's in flux. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, the reason I ask is because I worked with Milagros one year, she gave a list of people to call. And so that might be something that she would be willing to do, get people to call and encourage them to vote.
And I think the biggest push that where we bring this up is in our citizenship classes. Please, this is one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? So then you could have a voice, by filling out your ballot when it's time. So that's, I remember my parents took that on very, very serious. Yeah, that's an important asset for sure.
So I'm gonna have to formally disconvene this now. Anybody who needs to go, grab some of that wonderful food that Pat has up there on the way. But other than that, we will go to 11 o'clock in this informal way. And so anybody who has to go, don't feel bad about doing it. They're already warned. Yeah, so I was gonna say a few things here, namely that we are attempting the LOV organization in Trinity to really build consciousness, because the the Episcopal Church is in the process of change too, and so is the city of Bend, right? And we want to really be part of this, and we think of LCA as a kind of spear point of the entire process. This process is going to go on forever, right? And you don't want churches that are just like uninformed. So we have other things that we take initiatives in the parish. We have there for your, well, go ahead, Betsy.
Spanish, English, side by side, New Testament.
You can teach yourself Spanish by reading. You get spiritual direction and.
All you need is a dictionary right next to you as well. Yeah. That's cool.
We have other initiatives too. Like you might have noticed that thanks to Christian and Jed, we are introducing more Spanish language hymns into the liturgy. Right?
Wow.
Kind of unobtrusively, and they're very nice. And and if any of you want to do any of this volunteering, or there are other people involved, Maria is one of them, where they're going up to the community college and learning Spanish, right? Which is a nice thing to do.
That reminds me of a historical moment in time. In 1969, a friend of mine brought together about 100, 200 Mexicanos, and they interrupted midnight mass at the Basilica in LA to confront the archdiocese, the Irish archdiocese mostly. We don't have any Spanish masses.
Right.
We can't even sing in Spanish.
Yeah.
And if we do have a mass, we're in the basement. And we have no Spanish we have some, needs. And you know what? But it was a true story, Católicos por la Raza. And the guy who led that hired me 10 years later to be his law clerk, Richard Cruz. Yeah, he's in the annals of Chicano history.
I was going to say that sociologically, the function of the Catholic Church has been to move immigrants up and into the United States.
Thank you.
It's been that way from the very beginning. The Vatican never liked it, even from the beginning. They even invented a heresy called Americanism. This is true. Okay, so if they're flagging, let's have the Episcopal Church stop into the gap and keep the word going.
Hey.
Beautiful.
Brad, you wanna say anything?
No, not ready. Thank you.
So thank you. Let's go back to the questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Oscar.
Yes, thank you.